Hello again, I'm Robert Fithen, along with you, ranking 215 albums from the year 1992. Can you believe we're already at number 87? This just seems to be just flying right by, doesn't it? I really hope it seems that way, and it doesn't seem like something that's just dragging on and on endlessly. But yeah, we're getting there. The albums are hopefully getting better and better. Getting to stuff that I'm actually really getting into, really excited to talk about. Of course, I do kind of get excited just trashing albums that are horrible. I like having fun with stuff like that, terrible albums, but we're way past that at this point. So let's just get back to the ranking. Number 87. 1992 is when Tori Amos went solo, let her freak flag fly, and she was coming off of this, which did not do well at all, did not use her talents as well as they could have been used, I don't think, this Why Can't Tori Read group. But she released this one, her solo debut, Little Earthquakes. I remember Silent all these years, used to get played on VH1 all the time, the video for that. That's how I was really introduced to her. I didn't know about Why Can't Tori Read at the time. I thought she was definitely original. I definitely thought she had a different sound, and that red hair really made her stand out. And I was really curious about her. And this is a decent way to be introduced to Tori Amos. I think her later albums are better. I definitely prefer those over this one. I think overall this one is a little bit too mellow for my tastes all the way through. It's almost an hour long. It is a CD from 1992. They were making hour-long albums back then, and this is one of them. Starts off really strong though with the song called Crucify. That became one of her popular songs that she would do again and again in concert. The vocal effect that they put on her voice on that track, I don't know why they would do that though. That's a no from me. Don't put that vocal effect on her voice. They only do it on the one song, Crucify. But it's a weird kind of reverb that sounds kind of amateurish. I don't know why they do that effect on there. But anyway, great song from her. She's looking for a savior in those dirty sheets. Well, the sheets are already dirty. The savior's probably up and gotten out of there. But anyway, that's probably why you're still looking for him. But yeah, Crucify is great. Girl, the track that follows that, I'm still interested. She's still got her own thing going on. She's still pulling me in. Silent all these years, great as well. And then things start to kind of mellow out a little too much. Like I said, it's a little too mellow all the way through. By the time you get almost to the end with, Me and My Gun, where it's just strictly a cappella and it's just her voice, it's like, okay, come on now, let's put some more in here. She needs a God song in this, like the song God she does, where it's just all this guitar and craziness going on. She needs one of those, like a couple of those in the middle of this album. I think it would balance it out pretty nicely. But again, a decent album, a nice way to get introduced to Tori Amos. But just know that she's going to fill things out. She's going to experiment a little bit. She's going to be a little more adventurous coming up in future albums, and I think it's definitely going to help her sound. There is some nice touches on here every once in a while, like the track Happy Phantom, which has a little bit of kind of theatrical sort of sound to it on there. So there are bigger moments on here. With someone like Tori Amos, it is mostly about her voice and the way her lyrics, and then the way that she brings those lyrics out with her particular vocal style. I think the music is usually not something that's focused on, but I think the albums are better when they do have a little more adventure a little more fullness in the music. When she was first out, she was getting a lot of comparisons to Kate Bush. And this is a lot more like later Kate Bush that I'm not so much into, rather than the earlier stuff, which musically complements her style a lot more. But Tori Amos is definitely her own person. So they I think after this album they stopped with the Kate Bush comparisons so much. But overall, I think it's just a little bit too mellow, little bit too much just Tori and her piano, which might work well seeing her live, but on an album, it's just a little bit too light for me. So yeah, when I go for Tori Amos, which I think she's great, I listen to Tori Amos, not all the time, but quite, I listen to her on and off. And when I go for one of her CDs, it's usually not this one, but this one's okay too, Little Earthquakes. Yola, Tengo came out with their album called May I Sing For Me in 1992. This was like their fourth or fifth album. They'd been out since like the late 80s. They're still putting out albums and still being considered indie rock, even though I think they've been on a major label for a while. Also considered lo-fi, even though this does not sound lo-fi at all. In fact, this is really nicely recorded. It's these bands get these kind of categories or subgenres or whatever that don't even fit them. This is not lo-fi. Anyway, nice though. I really enjoyed it. I'm not a big Yola Tango fan concerning what I've heard previously. Like I heard some of their later albums and I was not blown away by them at all. The one that came out just a couple of years ago, didn't care for that. This one's great though. It's got some nice pop tunes on here. It's got some other kind of, it goes in different areas. That's what I like about it. It's not the same thing all the way through. It's a lengthier album, but it does take some different pathways, some different musical, journeys. And the track on here, called Upside Down, nice pop tune with a nice female-male vocal going on. Both of them sound great. You've got power pop on here called Some Kind of Fatigue. You've got long, droning guitar effects swirling around back and forth, for 9 minutes called Sleeping Pill, if that's what you're into. You got another 9-minute song on here called Mushroom Cloud of Hiss. I think that's self-descriptive. No need for me to tell you all about that one. I think the title speaks for itself. So it is a nice listen to have some different kind of sound going on. You got the really kind of 3.5 minute, like I said, power pop stuff, more poppy kind of stuff. You got some rocking going on. You got some droning going on. You got some dream pop. Yola Tango. If this might make me rethink them and maybe make me want to hear some other albums from them. I probably want to do their earlier ones. But like I said, this is not lo-fi. This is really nicely recorded. Everything is crystal clear, especially the drums, which I love crystal clear drumming. And so, yeah, Yola Tengo. I'm going to give them a second thought here after hearing this one. May I Sing for Me? And maybe check out some of their other stuff. But the vocals. I want to hear more from the female vocalist. She only pops up on a few tracks. But when she does, it's very welcome. She kind of counters the male guy. I'm saying male and female because I don't remember their names. Not that big of a fan. Need to become a bigger fan, I guess. So I figured this was a great way to represent the nice wintry scene of the cover of the Jayhawks album called Hollywood Town Hall. I'm not really that familiar with these guys. I've kind of heard them off and on over the years, but this is the first time I've ever heard an entire album all the way through, and fairly impressed with this. It's got a lot of nice different little undertones going on, and it's not really jangle pop like I thought they were. Maybe they are more in that direction on some of their other albums. This one is more like more of a country feel, a little bit of Graham Parsons influence in that. Songs like Clouds, where they're talking about, can your diamonds talk to you? I thought that was pretty clever. They're obviously very upset at some woman. You've got songs with different textures on them. They've got a nice steel guitar on Two Angels. You've got a nice tremolo going on in the background. Take Me With You Where You Go. Really nice kind of vocal harmony in that too. That's a little bit different. So they do keep things interesting. It's not just kind of the same kind of, we're here with our acoustic guitars and we're all happy and bouncing around. I'm not a fan of music like that at all. So this is a little bit more, I guess, varied and a little more country. And their vocals are kind of a sweet arrangement. These guys sing in a little bit of a higher octave than a lot of the country rock, the alt country. I mean, there's so many different terms for this based on the little nuances, but these guys have kind of a sweeter harmonies. They don't have that twang, that kind of lazy kind of sounding, well, I've been here for a while, like the Uncle Tupelo type stuff. Not that I don't like Uncle Tupelo. My God, they're hometown heroes. Don't get that impression. But yeah, the Jayhawks, finally got a chance to hear one of their albums all the way through, and I'll probably want to hear some more. I don't know if there's different feelings for different ones, but this one, a Hollywood Town Hall, was actually pretty interesting. You got a nice little piano there too on the song Sister Cry. So looking forward to some more Jayhawks. They're probably not going to become one of my favorite bands or one of my top 40 favorite bands, but it was a decent listen overall. '92 is the year that we got Lou Reed's Magic and Loss album. There's magic in this album. There's loss in this album. A lot more loss. Death is definitely a big theme in this, whether it is predicting someone's demise in songs like Sword of Damocles, or being in the hospital and watching someone pass away and then watching their belongings removed from their apartment in the song Goodbye Mass. There's thinking about your own death and what's going to happen to your body in songs like Cremation. So it's a lot of that in this. It is quite a stark album. And it's a minimalist album on here. You've got Lou Reed in his particular kind of talking, singing style. He doesn't sound necessarily cold or uncaring, because you can tell by the lyrics that he really is losing friends here, people he cares about. It's apparently one of them is Doc Pomus, the guy that got him started in his career years and years ago. But there's also other people involved as well in this, so it doesn't sound uncaring, it doesn't sound cold, but it does sound very matter-of-factly, like he's just describing things. But again, with the lyrics, you can tell that he's touched by someone's life, and then, of course, they're passing. The music in this goes well with his particular style of vocal. It is very sparse. There's no percussion, really, in a lot of these songs. A lot of it is just guitar, bass, that particular bass of, everybody, Lou Reed, most people think of Walk on the Wild Side, and you get that particular upright bass sounding thing sneaking in on a couple of tracks. But it is a lot of guitar, keyboard every once in a while with more of, not necessarily keyboard note playing, but more of a keyboard sort of surrounding the music, sort of like giving a blanket to it. But like I said, no percussion, so the music doesn't really have a dated sound to it. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when this is from if you're not sure. This could be an album from the mid-'80s. This could be an album from the mid-2000s. It's just, it's that kind of thing. Because to me, caring so much about percussion and drums and all that, that is what always gives me clues about when an album is from. There's a particular sound that they mix, or they, have the drums a certain way, a certain sound, whether they're using real drums, drum loops, that kind of thing, always gives away when the album's from, but that does not happen here. So you've got a great musical landscape, like I said, very sparse, going along with his sort of sparse vocal that doesn't really, he's not on here singing some operatic way, of course, it's Lou Reed. But it is quite an interesting listen, especially if the topics on this album have been on your mind. He really is right there. And of course, now at this point, he has passed away himself, so that just kind of adds to the mystique of Magic and Loss. Highlights, of course, are the two songs I mentioned, Sword of Damocles and Goodbye Mass, but you've got other things on here. You've got sort of... his sort of observational stuff throughout, but some of the more strange stuff like Harry's Circumcision, where a guy is cutting off his nose. That's his particular type of circumcision. He cuts his nose off, thinking of Van Gogh. It's like, oh, I missed it just by a few inches here. Also tries to cut a temple into his chin or whatever, and he wakes up in the hospital. The doctor's telling him, oh, you're unrecognizable. And he's like, that's what I was going for. Great. So stories like that. The album does start off, it had me worried a little bit, because the first song, What's Good, is very simplistic and very much a sing-songy kind of lyrical style. And I'm like, man, this is not up to par. I mean, Lou Reed is always known as like a poet. And if you don't have that, then you don't have anything. Because like I said, he's not known for great vocal work, or... the music on here is just so inventive and compelling and whatever. That's not what's going on. It's not really whatever is going on in a Lou Reed album. It's always about the lyrics. And the first song was like, this is really not living up to the standard. But it does kind of open up and get a lot more interesting as the album goes on. So I wouldn't put this on, listen to the first couple of tracks and go, yeah, no, and shut it off. It does get more interesting. If you're not a Lou Reed fan, this is not going to make you one, certainly. I would start with his 70s stuff, particularly something like Berlin, or absolutely Transformer should be where most people would start. And if you are a Lou Reed fan, if you've missed this album for whatever reason, I don't know how popular this was. It's not something that usually comes up in conversation when people talk about Lou Reed. It's usually Transformer, Berlin. If they're talking about something later on, it's the New York album, a couple of years before this. But give this a shot, and you might be surprised. But it is very very right down the line about what it's all about, and that's magic and loss. A lot more loss than magic. Do you remember the band Four Non Blondes? Not only did they have a 1992 album called Bigger, Better, Faster, More, that was their only album. They were a one-and-done band fronted by Linda Perry. who, you know, went on to become a hugely successful songwriter and producer, working with a bunch of different people, including Pink, I think was her biggest collaboration there. Really did a lot for her career. But back in 1992, it was all about this song called "What's Up." And if you don't know if you don't recognize the title "What's Up," it's the basically "What's Going On" was what it would say over and hey, 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 what's going on? It's that one. And man, that got played a lot. That was one of those songs that just started coming out of the air. It was just in the air after a while. It was just, you know, coming out of walls that didn't even have speakers in them. I mean, that was... Wow, that song got played a lot. And not only in 92, but also the years following. It's kind of fallen off, you know, years later. But man, for about 5 years, that thing was just on all the time. And it's from this album. It was really the only big hit. They had another kind of secondary, tertiary single called Dear Mr. President. And yeah, that was pretty much what they were known for. Like I said, just one album and done. They had a song on some soundtracks like Airheads, and they did a Misty Mountain Hop for the Led Zeppelin and Encomium tribute album that came out in like 94, 95. But yeah, it's all about that What's Going On song for Four Non-Blondes. And the album I was not familiar with at all. I did get the cassette single back in 1992 for What's Up. Train is the other song on here, cassette single. But never was really heard the album a lot. It's pretty much like What's Up. If you like that song, you probably like a lot of the rest of the album. If you don't like that song or Linda Perry's singing style, you probably will not like this album. She just belts stuff out through the whole thing. She's a belter. And she shows very little nuance or restraint. It's just a lot of belting stuff out. Not in a, you know, like a Janis Joplin kind of way where, you know, she can do different things with it and you can feel like the pain in her voice, and she's trying to be more soulful, I guess, more bluesy. Linda Perry is just more about just bellowing. And it does kind of start to get a little stale after, you know, like track 5 and 6. There is a little bit of variety in the music. There's some bluesy stuff on here. There's some fast, like dancey kind of stuff. Mostly it's mid-tempo, just kind of, you know, that kind of alternative rock, kind of mid-tempo, kind of bashing kind of stuff. Not a lot of variety in the lyrics, all about self-introspection. A lot of it is about taking drugs to escape reality. Morphine and Chocolate is the biggest example of that, but that shows up in a lot of the lyrics. Morphine and Chocolate, there's a great part in that where Linda Perry just does this sort of primal yelling right in the middle of the song, like I've never heard before. So definitely check that out. That's kind of interesting. But most of it is kind of similar sounding with the vocals. I think she is a great, obviously, songwriter and producer with other people. But here they just did, you know, she just did her one thing and then, you know, with her own thing. I think she had some solo stuff later on, but this was her thing, Four Non-Blondes. And one of the band members, I think, was actually blonde, so not even truth in the band name there. But, you know, it's a nice thing to listen to get a sense of 1992 a couple of times, but it's definitely not going to be in my top 20 or something like that. But I'm glad at least I finally got to experience the entire album. And not just, you know, the What's Up over and over again. And then what the other song on there is called Train, which is the first song on the album. But yeah, Four Non-Blondes. Glad to finally catch up with the entire thing. If you just like sort of primal, cathartic, just bellowing, maybe check this one out. All right, let's talk about the band Dada and their album called Puzzle from 1992. I believe this was their debut. If not, it was one of their first ones anyway. This had a few hits on it that were all over modern alternative radio at the time, like Disneyland. You know, all this guy's has done all this stuff, and so now I'm going to Disneyland. You know, and Disneyland is D-I-Z and then, you know, like K-N-E-E, Disneyland. I think there was a trademark issue with that, probably. You don't want the mouse upset. So, yeah, he's robbed a grocery store. He's gotten kicked out of school. He's flipped off the current president, George Bush, I think it was. Now he's going to Disneyland. Also dim. You know, the girl's left and now his whole life's gone dim. Can you leave at least a picture behind so I can remember your face? Nice little guitar riff in that song. These guys basically, a little bit of jangle pop going on here with a little extra added electric guitar for a little bit of energy. Gives them a little bit of different sound. A lot of different, you know, variations on that on here. Keep it interesting. I think Here Today, Gone Tomorrow was another single. Didn't do as well as those first two. And then you got songs like Dog, where the woman that believes that she used to be a dog. Posters, like the guy wants the girl to come over in his room, look at his posters, check out my posters. That's all that's going to happen. You're just going to look at some posters. These guys from Los Angeles, you know it's 1992 when you're a band from LA and you look like that. That looks like the project manager's assistant started a band with the copy machine repairman and the guy from the coffee shop across the street. That's what that looks like right there. That's Dada. And this is Puzzle. A decent listen overall. Like I said, it keeps interesting with variations on the theme of like a little bit of electric in there in the jangle pop, and really nice harmonies from these guys. They're usually harmonizing in the songs there. So if you like that kind of sound, you might want to check this out. They had a few albums after this, and then just kind of fizzled away as a lot of these bands did. But I remember, Disneyland and Dim were the two songs that were always on the radio, so those brought back some good memories here. You got one of those things that used to go on top of the pencils with the big hair here, stuck in a vise. Not really sure what that's supposed to mean. You got what is that, a rocking horse or a carousel horse on fire? You got an iron in the ocean? Anyway, Dada. So listening to, reviewing, and ranking all of these albums from 1992, but really quickly I want to talk about 1993. 1993 was when I started college, and it seems like it was the year that a lot of these underground kind of minor label indie bands that were just really, the real alt rock, the real stuff that was in the basement bars and stuff like that, all started getting signed to major labels. All these major labels looking for the next Nirvana. And of course, Nirvana's Nevermind came out in September of 91, but it didn't start blowing up until early 92 or whatever. So it takes a little time for record labels to start seeking out bands to be the next one. Everybody's getting signed. So a lot of that happened in 93. You have to, if you weren't around at the time, you have to imagine a time when a band like Drive Like Jehu could be signed to Atlantic Records. That was 1993 in a nutshell. Drive Like Jehu is now being signed to a major label. And if you are not familiar with that band, their debut came out in 1992, very early 92, or maybe it was even late 91. There is some discrepancy on the internet, but for these purposes, I'm ranking the albums of 1992, so we're just putting it with 1992. Self-titled debut from Drive Like Jehu. I first got introduced to these guys with the Yank Crime album that came out in 1993. Went back and heard this one, and even more madness on this one, even crazier. The sound got not really polished up, but a little more, I guess, professionally recorded with the Yank Crime album, which that blew me away the first time I heard that. This one is more like what you can expect from some band on a minor label like Headhunter Records. And just madness on this. Very loud, very aggressive. Lead singer is just screaming it out. Some of the rhythms not very conventional, not exactly going along with certain things, and then they'll just pop into something that sounds like, oh, this is alt rock, and then it jumps right back into the madness again. So you got to be ready for this. This is absolutely not for everyone. Lead singer, I mentioned, his name is Rick Froberg. Unfortunately, he passed away back in 2023. But yeah, just screaming it out. He was also with a band called Pitchfork for a while, if you're familiar with them. But just lyrics that are just craziness as well. They go right with the whole tone of the band. You got tracks on here like the 10-minute Oh, Pencil Sharp. It's all about the different things you can do with a pencil that's really sharp. If you can, that's exactly where that song is going. You also have If It Kills You, where the opening line, I'm thinking what he's singing is, your 47th birthday cake is peeing acid on your face. Learn to relax if it kills you. Kind of hard to relax while this album is on, though. This is just absolute aggression, absolute craziness. You've got the lead guitarist, John Reese. He was also with Rocket from the Crypt. He's one of the guys that brought this band together. The same year he, developed Rocket from the Crypt as well. So they're both getting signed to major labels in 93, I believe. So it's all working out really well for John Reese, and he's still around making music to this day. So you've got him, like I said, Rick Froberg, and just absolute insanity. But if you want to be introduced to the band Drive Like Jehu and you haven't heard of them at all, I would definitely suggest the album that follows this called Yank Crime. And they only have two. They just had two albums and then when they were done. That happened to a lot of these bands. A lot of these bands, underground, indie, whatever you want to call it, they were, you know, touring all over in their vans and whatever, selling CDs out of the back of it. They'd get picked up by a major label going, whoa, we need the next Nirvana. You know, they were way too out for that. Like this band, these guys aren't ever going to go commercial and be like Nirvana. Are you kidding? And so a lot of bands like this, and then they would get on that major label. The major label would put out one album. It wouldn't sell, it wouldn't go double platinum. So they would get dropped. And then the band would be so frustrated by the music industry at that point, the band would dissolve, and that would be it. That happened to so many bands in 1993, 1994, that you could do a whole video series on just that. And actually doing a ranking of the albums of 1993 and 1994, which I probably will get around to at one point. I'm not going to do it next, but I will probably do it at one point way down the road. That's probably the tale that video series would tell, is all of these bands are on a major label now. They're going to put out 1 or 2 albums, and then they're going to get dropped. And Drive Like Jehu, one of those bands. Super Suckers put out their debut in 1992, named The Smoke of Hell. And Super Suckers had a lot going for them at this point, right off the bat with their debut. Checking a lot of boxes here. They're on Sub Pop. You know, Sub Pop's really hot in 1992. They got that cover art, man. Look at that cover. You just want to buy that record no matter what it sounds like, or that CD. But yeah, they cover, they're named Super Suckers, sweet, candy, flavored fun, a lot of things going for these guys, and they're checking a lot of the boxes with their sound. They got a lot of quick little songs here, very fun, very upbeat, kind of the punk rock, more of in a country flavor, cowpunk, I think it was later called. These guys were on the forefront of that. And so they got songs on here, about hot rods and the devil and drinking and being lazy. And, I think being lazy is on the next, on the couch is on the next album. But, you get the idea. They're checking all the boxes here. They got a song called I Say Fuck, where it's like, I say fuck, you say yeah, I say, got the audience participation track track 3. They're already got the audience participation track down. So when you see them in concert, you know what to do. Me and my friends actually saw these guys at Cicero's in St. Louis, the basement bar. It was a fun concert, but, not a lot of variety here. They do have a compilation album later on called All the Songs Sound the Same, so they're in on the joke. There's some nice songs on here. The Caliente is a little bit different. It's a little more of a full-out, rock and roller, a little more going on that one. Hell City Hell is a little more... got the eerie atmosphere going on. You're in Hell City Hell, of course. There's going to be some atmosphere there. Drink and complain. The guy doesn't have anything going on. He's not drinking because he's heartbroken. He's not drinking to have fun. He's not drinking because he just lost his dog or something. He's drinking because he just wants to drink and complain. I'm sure you know some people like that. But yeah, so, it's fun stuff on here. Not anything groundbreaking. Unless you call the cowpunk stuff groundbreaking, but not a lot of things that are groundbreaking on here. Probably shouldn't be your first punk rock album if you've never had one before. But like I said, these guys just seemingly checking off all the boxes. And with that cover art, you just won an album that has a cover like that. So, nice going, Super Suckers. Way to put out your debut and just blast it out there and make everybody want to get it. And a lot of people did. And of course, they did get, they got a little better as their discography went on. Their second album with On the Couch and all those. We played that in college, and that had great tunes on there. A little more filled out, both with vocal harmonies. I think it was the Eddie Spaghetti basically harmonizing with himself, through the magic of audio production on a lot of those. But a little more of a filled out sound. And so, yeah, that one's a little more, and then probably you want to get that one first if you don't have that one. But this one's okay, it's good for a start, 30 minutes long. All the songs are very short. None of them always say they're welcome. You get a nice instrumental at the end, no frills, just kind of fun stuff. From Cincinnati, Ohio, they are the Afghan Whigs, and their 1992 album was called Congregation on Sub Pop. Now, this isn't grunge, definitely, and this is not lo-fi garage rock. This is a really high-quality sounding production with a lot of different musical things going on. You've got the funky guitar stuff. This is a really good band that isn't afraid to blow down the walls of what you expect on something like Sub Pop. So this sounds great, and you can just hear this and tell that these guys are destined to go break into a major label, which after this album they did. I think these guys, I think people assumed that Afghan Whigs would blow up bigger and become more popular than they actually did. But the people who were in the know are in the know. And the band is just great. A lot of little musical delicacies going on that you really have to check out. You know, you really have to closely listen to capture. And it's like, oh, okay, there's that little funky guitar riff. There's a little bit of, you know, stepping outside of the basic, you know, a little bit of jazz stuff, stepping out of the basic things that you expect from, you know, drums, bass, two guitarists, lead vocalist type of thing. But so it makes the album an interesting listen musically. Lyrically, we definitely tend to stay in the same lane throughout, and that is dysfunctional relationship after toxic relationship after, you know, brutal relationship. I mean, it's just a lot of that. And it's lead singer Greg Dooley. I don't know what he's like as a person. I know somebody kicked his ass in Texas and sent him into a coma one time. I think that happened like right on stage. But, you know, I don't know what he's like as a person, but as a lyricist, as the character that comes out in these songs, he's a bit of a jerk, song after song. You know, just relationship oriented, but it's always these damaged people in these relationships, and that, you know, every relationship is like some sort of contest to see who's going to win. You know, one of the best lines in this album comes from the song Dedicated, where it's like, you figured me out and now we're both disappointed. So it's hard for me to relate to somebody who's so brutal with the relationship type of thing. And it's always, like I said, it always seems like it's a contest, but it does make for somewhat interesting to listen, even if it is a little bit repetitive with some of the themes. It does break out of that in a couple of songs, but mostly we're in dysfunctional relationships here. And the word blood keeps coming up in the lyrics a lot. So there's that. And by the time you get to the end with the second to last track, Tonight, where he keeps repeating, oh, I want to walk you home, I want to walk you home. It's like, girl, do not let that guy walk you home. That is not going to lead to anything pleasant, anything, you know, no. It's just go. You're better off just walking home alone. But catchy grooves on here. Like I said, a couple of steps above the average lo-fi garage rock thing makes these guys a really interesting listen. I just wish that a few times they would break more out of the confines of these. We're in a toxic relationship and we're fighting and it's a contest and, you know, I'm going to turn on you before you turn on me type of thing, which is literally a lyric in one of the songs too. But yeah, an overall a good listen. I was not familiar with this album. I got turned on to these guys with the following one called Gentleman, which I think kind of breaks out of those confines a little bit more. But this was definitely an interesting listen. More for musical, the musical landscape more than a lot of the lyrics. Although the lyrics are interesting. I mean, it's interesting hearing this guy just be brutally honest in some of these relationships. I mean, it definitely expands lyrically more than just the usual, you know, boy, girl, male, female, whatever, love type of thing going on here. It's just that he's hard to, by the time you get like 2/3 of the way through the album, he's getting harder and harder to root for and harder to identify with. But a great listen overall anyway. Afghan Whigs and Congregation. Cracker released their debut in 1992. This is the band that features David Lowery, formerly of Camper Van Beethoven. And the big song off of this was the very first track, Teen Angst, What the World Needs Now. Kind of a satirical look at what was going on currently in music and pop culture. And, well, really more of the title. I mean, the song itself, the lyrics go out into more fields of music, like, you know, what the world needs now is a new folk singer, like I need a hole in my head. What the world needs now is a new Frank Sinatra so I can get you in bed. But my favorite line, what I need now is a car with a V8 engine so I can drive and find some place to be surly. Because you definitely wanted to do that in 1992. You wanted to drive around and find a place where you could just hop out of the car and walk around surly. It was the thing back then. Yeah, so Cracker got their eye on what's going on currently with, you know, the people. And Happy Birthday to Me was another single on here. But a lot of these songs feature Mr. Lowery's particular brand of humor, not only the first track, but also songs like Mr. Wrong, where, you know, he's going out with the girl. He wants to know if she has a sister because he's got a brother that's getting out of jail in a month, he's going to need a girlfriend. You know, you got can I take my gun to heaven is another one on here. So pretty fun stuff. Keeping it pretty light though. There's nothing like too heavy. You know, he doesn't get really, you know, down into like, you know, society's ills or anything like that. So pretty light, fun stuff. You know, it's a three-piece band. They don't really have a permanent drummer, I guess. I know that Jim Keltner plays drums on a few songs on this. But yeah, so nice listen. I hadn't heard this in quite a while. So yeah, Cracker out for a while in the 90s. They had a few more albums that had some radio songs on them that got played every once in a while. So they did all right for themselves. This particular album kind of winds down towards the end a little bit, kind of gets a little less interesting. I know there's a song on here called Another Song About Rain that actually features the guitarist Johnny Hickman on vocals, and it's just pretty much a straightforward song. Really kind of sounds out of place on here. Definitely not one of my favorite tracks on here, but the first half of this or so, pretty delightful stuff. Cracker, and these guys I thought they had like maybe 4 or 5 albums. Turns out they've got more like 8 or 9. You know, they were going on into the 2000s. I think their last album came out in the mid 2010s, somewhere around there. But I'm definitely more familiar with their 90s stuff. And of course, this, like I said, their debut, just self-titled, Cracker. So there you have it. Another episode in ranking 215 albums from the year 1992 has come to a close. And there are quite a few episodes when you do the whole ranking 215 albums and take time to review each one of them. I definitely appreciate you taking your time and spending it with me watching these videos. Definitely. And please leave a comment on maybe some of your favorites that hopefully haven't come up yet, because if they're your favorites, they should be more towards the end of the ranking. Certainly, hopefully, weren't at the beginning of the ranking, although some people have already commented, yeah, that's my favorite album of all time. You put it in the 200s. But, you know, that's how it works sometimes when people you know, like bad albums, I guess. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. On with the ranking in the next episode. Hopefully I will see you then. I'm Robert Fithen. Talk to you soon.